Thank you, South Sound Magazine. In particular, I saw him earlier, Lander. Thank you, my friend. Lander and I have had a relationship over the years, and he helped me market my business in style. So, I was asked by Lander to consider Women to Watch and was encouraged to tell my story. So, as Lori said, in quotes, as a seasoned professional, I've been given the opportunity to share what I believe are poignant moments in my business and my personal life. So allow me to do what I find very uncomfortable and speak about myself. You might have gathered by the song choice that I grew up in Port Orchard. What is it, this? Yeah. On a 42-acre farm. I'm a middle child, and I'm definitely the kid that put the gray in my parents' hair. My father was a dentist and an avid outdoorsman who hunted, fished, raised our own cows and chickens, and we saw every stage from farm to freezer. There was a slight expectation that we play along and enjoy the same. I've been told from those that know me I'm fairly high OCD, and I think that's just a nice way of saying I'm a nitpicker. As a kid, I would know by the particles in the air if someone had been snooping around my room. It's so true. I am goal-oriented, and I absolutely expect to achieve them. So despite landing in a profession of being a type A dentist and becoming a successful business owner, life has kept me in check with some monumental teaching moments. My first life lessons came when I started riding horses and doing a bit of showing locally. Although I think my parents turned me on to horses just to keep me out of trouble, it quickly escalated to this. These pictures were taken in 1982 and 83, and for those doing the math, I'm 53. This was the National Appaloosa Horse Show in Louisville, Kentucky, and I had just won the all-around perpetual trophy for the most points combined of anyone 18 and under. My horse, Jester, and I won it 2 years in a row, and I believe we remain the only pair to ever do it with one horse for all events. So the bar was set at an early age. There was no denying it, but in my mind, I'm like, I can't possibly peak at 12. So I learned many lessons showing horses. My parents knew that more than I. They found a strict disciplinarian in my horse trainer and let her keep me in check. She was someone I respected a great deal, and many of those lessons she taught me have stuck with me my entire life, such that I was pushed beyond my limits. I learned organization. I paid attention to every detail. I could still pack for a horse show today, all the tack, all the feed, all the gear, all the wardrobe. My parents never did any of that for me at that age, although they paid for it. Thank you, Mom. I also learned how to back a trailer. This can come in handy in life. Yes. It's impressive. You do this sometimes and people, yeah, anyway. Mainly, I learned self-discipline. I learned self-confidence. Competing in anything at that level is not easy, so I got comfortable being uncomfortable. And I face competition head on. I'm absolutely convinced this foundation set me up for life. So what is my overall message to you tonight? Make purposeful career decisions and consider a plan B. My first career is an ideal example. I graduated from the University of Michigan with a Bachelor of Science in Dental Hygiene. I was familiar with the field because of my dad, and I knew I wanted to graduate with a skill that was employable, in demand, made me money, gave me flexibility for travel, all of those things that are important needs. But as I started working as a hygienist 6 years in, hour after hour, appointment after appointment, day after day, I'm like, I know I can do a better job than him. And I was like, so for me personally, dental hygiene was ultimately my plan B. I do believe it's important to have those foundations in place. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to take a leap forward. Being a hygienist served me well. I worked for the Dean of General Dentistry in dental school in his private practice, so it had its perks. I think we can go to the next slide. So I graduated from Creighton Dental School, and I ended up getting married the same day. It was a big day. Yeah, it was a big day. I met my husband, Joe Simpson, in dental school, and we quickly connected on developing a dream office together. The result was SoundBridge Center for Dental Arts. We believed staying committed to the higher standard, so we developed our care and philosophy around that. As any business owner knows, it's a monumental task to create a reputation from scratch. We were confident we had what it took. And we put our lives on the line to create this dream. This is what it looked like when we walked in. And yeah. There was nothing there, so it literally was starting from scratch. A year and a half into growing our practice, Joe had symptoms of abdominal pain, and ultimately we learned that he had an aggressive and angry kind of cancer called neuroendocrine carcinoma. We never once, following his initial diagnosis, received any good news. Joe's illness lasted 6 months, and as much as I wanted more time, I did not want to see him live another moment with that horrific disease. I love this slide because I used to say that before that all happened, and I don't really say that anymore. But so here I am. I'm faced with the unimaginable terror of losing him 3 years into our marriage. Our dreams together no longer existed. And beyond the emotional side, the perspective of it all is we had a $1 million practice loan, we had 2 dental school loans, we had a new house in Canterwood, we had a second on our house in Canterwood. I mean, do the math. So what do you do following something like that? I remembered first and foremost that I was Dr. Bloomquist, and I accomplished that alone. I convincingly had decided this path before I met Joe. This was my dream, and how thankful I was that I had invested in my education and in myself. I ultimately knew I had faith in myself. So like it or not, I was at least prepared to face another plan B. So for the emotional healing side of things, this is Daphne. She saved my life. She was the best thing I ever did and made me smile every day. And I think they're going to do a video here, because if you ever ask, is the doctor available, and they're busy in their back office, this is what we'd be doing. We'd be playing with Daphne in the back office. But she... I had to lighten the mood. The third thing I did was this. So I have to say something about this first picture really quick, is because I had a deep desire to take an adventure that was beyond the norm. And to be completely transparent, I didn't care what danger ensued. So this is Joe's sister, and we took a trip to Africa. And you think of Meryl Streep and these gauzy linens and this beautiful, out of Africa, right? And then I think you go to the next slide. It'll come up, but it's freezing cold. So just make sure that if you ever do end up there, don't have those visions of that. It's freezing. It's freezing. There will be a slide that comes up where we're like sitting in the ice, so at some point. Anyway, I've now been to Africa 6 times. I've been all over South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia. I've hunted, I've fished, I've hiked, I've tracked, I've photographed, I've been on both river and land safaris, and I've even spent nights in a tree stand out in the African bush. Africa has been a major part in my journey to healing and learning about myself, and it's made me face fears to give me strength to move forward in life. Yeah. My greatest accomplishment was my business. I spent shy of 17 years with my head down, and I worked. I always tried to treat my patients with the goal of staying committed to the higher standard. I loved cosmetic dentistry, and I learned to focus my practice on procedures I enjoyed the most, particularly having an eye and the love for the aesthetic. Dentistry is a tough business. It's technically demanding. It wears on you physically, and it's emotionally draining. I started to worry about that at about 15 years in. How was I going to keep up the pace on my own? So as I had thought in the past, I better make sure I have a plan when I could be just one injury or illness away from losing everything. And those of you that know me, I do have a certain level of lifestyle demands that I need to keep up with, so there's that. So I prepared myself, and I went back and got a master's degree from Creighton University in lifestyle health and wellness. My thought process was to add options, flexibility, opportunities, because God forbid I needed another plan B. So what I've done with that to this point is commit to educating my patients on their overall health, how it directly affects oral health. I reinforce the importance of systemic health as it relates to lifestyle and longevity, how stress plays a factor in chronic disease, and how to help my patients advocate for their own health care. For now, it's been a great addition to how I enjoy my dentistry. That's my okay, so here we go. Yes. My personal life picked up a little bit. Finally. So yes, life changed dramatically. I sold my dental practice when I felt it was at the top of my game, and I thank Damien for opening that door for me as he gave me the encouragement to walk away at the right time. I never regretted selling when I did. I think it's important to know your tolerances and your limits and when it might be time to shift gears. I wasn't even sure what I planned to do if I wasn't the owner of SoundBridge. I just had faith in myself that I had set myself up with some options. This look right here, you see that? Damien has to put up with that. And there's about 6 people that I work with that also know what that look is. Yeah, the over the eyes. Anyway, moving on. It was 8 months after my practice sale when I was diagnosed with cancer myself. Talk about immediate PTSD when it came to cancer care, as you can imagine. Within 2 weeks, I was having modified radical abdominal surgery, and just when I thought my cancer was a blip on the radar, 2 months later, I found myself spending the month of December in the hospital with an unknown illness. I was screened for viruses. I was screened by hematology, oncology, infectious disease, you name it. I was convinced they'd missed some angry cancer initially. Eventually, I was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune storm called Still's disease. I had a saying, and this came from one of my dear nieces, "I can't control my emotions," which was code between my husband and my family and I to give me space because I was losing it. I couldn't get out of bed for 3 months. I had daily injections of immunosuppressants, steroids, anti-anxiety meds. I was a mess. It took me about a year to fully recover. We are hopeful that this Still's disease and my cancer were one-time episodes, so I sat reflecting on what retirement looks like now. What lessons was I supposed to be learning with these curveballs? I guess I wasn't really sure about that until my husband casually said to me one morning, "What about all that health and wellness stuff you learned about?" And I was like, "Oh, honey, that's for people that don't live a healthy lifestyle and have chronic disease." And then I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute." I was living a life that I had studied and learned about in my master's program. I had chronic life stresses that many would argue led to the propensity for cancer, and I certainly could lead to the possibility of inflammation and an autoimmune disease. So what is my life now? I'm working a lovely schedule of 3 days a week doing dentistry in my hometown of Port Orchard. Woo! I have my Arizona dental license, and I've worked locum down there. I love being in my yard, being surrounded by roses. I've taken up some upholstery, and I purposefully surround myself with friends that bring me joy and peace. Call it my current or my third plan B. So, some final pearls of my message to women is to think of it as a privilege to have options. Create options for yourself because you will need a plan B. Rely only on yourself for that security. Navigate those choices with purpose. Those solid foundations will allow you to take the risks and enjoy your career despite the unexpected challenges that inevitably will come up in life.